Hello and welcome again to a Shortstop with a Shortstop. Today we're going to talk about, are you coachable?
And the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall arise. No sorrow someday.
But before we get started with that, I'd like to again try to publicize Oath, which will be going on here at the Paintsville Church of Christ. It's going to start Thursday. But if you can possibly come and be with me Friday evening, started at 6 o'clock. And Saturday morning, our sessions will start at 9 o'clock. And then if you can come and worship with us on Sunday morning, Bible study at 10, worship at 11. Then we're going to have a fellowship meal. And then we'll go back at it again and have an early worship service at 1:30. And our Oath speakers are just top notch. And you will do nothing but learn and become a better person if you'll come and be with me. This is my personal invitation. Please come. When I was in the minor leagues, first year I played, I was up in Great Falls, Montana. One of my roommates, he was from Las Vegas, first roommate I ever had. And he was a hard-headed guy. And our coach, Art Masmanian, told him that he needed to be there a half hour before practice one day because he wanted to work on something with him. And we were talking that night in our apartment, and he said, "I'm not going. I don't need to work on that. I already know how to do that, and I don't want to go early. I want to stay and sleep." And so he didn't go. He decided to stay in bed and sleep, and he just showed up at the regular time when everybody else did. And Coach Masmanian called him into his office and talked to him, and evidently it didn't go well because the next day he was released. One of the reasons why he was released is because he was not coachable. He didn't want to listen to the coach and try to improve himself, and by repetition. But let me tell you a story, a true story that I heard the other day. There was a missionary in Alaska, and he flew into Anchorage and had to get a driver to drive him about 9 hours to where he was going. But there was another man with him. So they ended up getting a driver and got to their destination and stayed there for a couple of weeks, and then it was time for him to come back home. And guy said he needed to get another driver to drive back to Anchorage to get to the airport. But one of the people that were on the missionary trip with him said, "Hey, I've got a plane over here in a hangar. If you want me to fly you to the Anchorage airport, I can get you there in a couple hours instead of you having to spend 9 hours in a vehicle." And he thought about it for a while, and he said, okay. So him and his friend got into the plane with this guy. And they took off, and they got up into the sky, and they got into some clouds. And the pilot of the plane passed out, passed cold turkey out. So now you got two guys up in a plane that don't know how to fly it. And first thing they do is get on the radio, and they start broadcasting that they need help. And it took a couple of minutes. Jet pilot, a commercial pilot, heard him, and he said he was on his way to Anchorage. He would try to get in touch with the air traffic controller there and see if he couldn't get you some help. And a few minutes went by, and finally the air traffic controller, they heard him on the radio and said, "Are you out there?" And they said, "Yes, our pilot has passed out and we don't know how to fly." So the air traffic controller said, "Listen, if you will listen to my voice, you will live. If you don't listen to my voice, you're going to die. Will you listen to my voice?" And those guys on the plane said, "Yeah, absolutely, we're going to listen." He said, "Okay, I've spotted you on radar." He said, "In about 4 minutes, you're going to crash into a mountain. So listen to my voice. I need you to turn the plane a little bit left, and I'm going to guide you back into the Anchorage airport." And they turned it a little bit left, and the guy on the radio said, "Listen, you're going to go through a storm. There's getting ready to be a big storm that you're going to come through before you get to Anchorage. But there's going to be storms in our lives that we need to go through. And sometimes we need to realize that everything isn't going to be perfect. And if we look at James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4, it says, "Consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. And let endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." But the only way that these guys were going to get to where they wanted to go was if they listened to the voice of the air traffic controller. But another thing that we need to listen to, are we listening to God's voice? You see, He's telling us if we listen to Him, we're going to live. If we don't listen to Him, we're going to die. And I'm talking about spiritually, not physically. And those are the things that we need to understand. Jesus told us in John chapter 12 and verse 48 that His words are going to be what judges us. And if we listen to His words, we're going to live spiritually. And if we look at James chapter 1 and verse 12, it says, "Blessed is a man who perseveres under trial. For once he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to those whom He loved." And that's what we want. We want that crown of life. We want to try to get to heaven with everything that is within us and try to take as many people with us as we possibly can. But these two guys that are on that plane are coachable. They are listening to the voice of that air traffic controller. My roommate was not coachable. He did not listen to his coach. So we've got to understand that we're going to be judged by the words that Jesus spoke. What about worship? Hebrews 10:25 tells us not to forsake the assembly. Wow. My roommate was told to be a half hour early. What if worship service or Bible studies at 10 o'clock? Are you going to show up at 10:30? What about worship service at 11? You going to show up at 11:30? If the elders or the men of the congregation have set a time for you to be there, then God has given them that authority to do that. And it's really God's voice that you want to listen to. And in actuality, to Bible study and worship, we should be at least 15 minutes early. So the early bird always gets the worm. But I think that's what we need to be there so that we can greet friends, we can greet visitors, we can fellowship with one another, and make it a good day and make it a good time for God, that He would be pleased and that we would be coachable. And the guys that were in that plane eventually landed. And the guy that was on the air traffic control side of it, he said, "Listen, I've done this several times. And the people that listened to my voice lived, but the ones that didn't listen to my voice died. And you guys listened to my voice." And when those guys hit that ground and they were safely back in the air terminal, they were just leaping for joy, from my understanding. But this is a true story. But also it's a true story what Jesus tells us. He wants us to listen to His voice and to be coachable as much as we possibly can. And He will give us a crown of life. But He asks us to obey that gospel plan of salvation. We need to hear, believe, repent, confess, and be baptized for the remission of sins. Here at the Paintsville Church of Christ, we're always looking for Bible studies. We're looking to teach people the truth. Are you coachable? Please give us a call or email us or private messages on the Shortstop with a Shortstop, and we will get in touch with you and answer any question that you might possibly have. Thank you for being with a Shortstop with a Shortstop.